Good morning, I'm Sally Riley and I'll be discussing the learning curve and the transfer of learning. A learning curve is a graphical depiction which represents how learning increases with experience. The learning curve of an individual may be erratic, whereas the curve which represents the average of many subjects should produce a smooth curve. The first person to describe the learning curve was Hermann Ebbinghaus in 1885. His tests involved the subjects memorizing a series of nonsense syllables, which he then recorded the success rate over a number of trials. Despite not using the term learning curve, his use of diagram to present learning against trial number may have been the initial stimulus for future research. Moving on to Bryan and Harter. They are said to be the first to use the term learning curve in 1909. They published their study on adult skills learning. Within their research, they observed the sending and receiving of Morse code. They found out that after about 10 months of experience, the operators were 4 or 5 times more productive than in their first month. Despite the studies, both Ebbinghaus and Bryan Harter, focusing on memory, the main focus is the improvement of productivity and efficiency of the subjects as they gain more experience. Moving on to the transfer of learning. The notion of transfer of learning was originally introduced as the transfer of practice by Edward Thorndike and Robert S. Woodworth, and it explored how individuals could transfer learning in one context to another. These days, the term transfer of learning would refer to how past experiences affect learning and performance in new situations. In the workplace environment, businesses employing new staff may take into consideration the transfer of learning. The employers would need to take into account the applicant's past experience to evaluate whether they will be suitable for the role. The transfer of learning may be used to benefit a company in times of economic downturn. Companies may use this to lower their expenses. A sector where they may do this is wages. For example, in a restaurant, there is a production line of presenter/order taker, chef/kitchen staff, and then waiter or waitress. The business could reduce staff levels by transferring the presenter's customer skills to combine their presenter role with the role of waiter and waitress. This member of staff would have to increase their efficiency as they have more responsibility. This is an example of where transfer of learning may cause redundancies. For the transfer of learning, an employee is able to embark on continuous learning and development. On a personal level, continuous learning is about expanding skills in response to changing environment. On an individual level, it's the practice which they carry out on a daily basis to continually increase knowledge. For example, asking for help when something is not understood, observing more experienced workers, exploring alternative methods, and practicing what has already been learned. In a business environment, SMART targets are put into place to ensure development. SMART targets are targets which meet the criteria of being specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Specific focuses on who, what, when, where, which, and why. Measurable asks questions such as how many or how much. Attainable means planning of steps and setting a timescale. Realistic is with objectives you are willing and able to work towards, but represent a substantial progress. And finally, timely, a goal should be grounded within a timescale. Renowned philanthropist Albert Hubbard once said, "Many people fail in life not for lack of ability or brains or even courage, but simply because they have never organised their energies around a goal." SMART targets are used by many companies to ensure this efficiency is met and ensure that a goal is put in place. All of these methods are used in the workplace and observed to ensure that everyone is working to that their company is working to its most efficient.